Welcome to The Mothers-in-Law, a podcast exploring the demanding world of being a mother and a lawyer. Join my mom, Carrie Foliani, as she shares real-life stories and practical tips to help you find joy and balance in your life. Let's embark on this journey of community and support together. This show is sponsored by General Counsel West, a law firm that supports companies transforming healthcare comprised of mothers and fathers practicing law.
Okay, thank you so much for joining the Mothers-in-Law podcast. We have a very special guest today, Terri Cammarano. She's the Chief Legal Officer at Cedars-Sinai and a very longtime friend and someone that I have looked up to. She is an icon in the healthcare lawyer leaders space and has a wealth of knowledge, has witnessed so many women on their motherhood lawyer journey, and has so much wisdom and insight to share. Thank you, Terri, for joining us today.
Well, I am humbled by that introduction.
Oh my gosh.
Because I have been lifted up by a lot of women and men along the way. And, just look at what you've done with your career, and you inspire me.
Oh my goodness. So that is very humbling, because I remember very clearly I met Terri. We've met, I want to say it's been 25 years, around 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And you're one of the very strong, successful women at Foley & Lardner. And you immediately sought out giving me an opportunity to support a nonprofit, this little school in Pasadena. And you sent me on my way to help structure a board meeting. And I had no idea what I was supposed to do. And you held my hand and then let me go alone. And I was like, who is this person? And felt so supported at such an early period of my career when that kind of support is so impactful. And I love that you immediately credit others who've lifted you up and supported you, men and women. What did they do? How did they lead you to sort of become the leader and the lawyer that you are today?
I think part of it was just being transparent about what they saw my strengths were and my weaknesses, and, being bold in saying, that's just not your thing. So instead of trying to be good at everything, focus on what you are actually good at and play to that strength.
Yeah.
Us A-type personalities, we want to have it all, do it all, be it all. And, I ended up not going into litigation because that's not my thing. I don't have the patience for the chess game.
Yes.
Right. And people were, mentors and partners in law firms were really good about telling me that.
Yeah.
And then, learning over the years not to be defensive about that and accept it and thinking, what can I do with this constructive information?
No, that's incredible. I mean, I think one of the, A-type personality thing that I think we often struggle with as mothers in that space. I'd love you to share sort of you've had a powerhouse career. You started at O'Melveny. You worked your butt off in law school, had multiple jobs, supported yourself. One of the things that is so incredible about your work ethic is, I see it coming in a lot earlier than the rest of us probably figured it out. You had extra special early onset experience with that. And so when you went into the law firm and you have that perfectionism, at what point did kids show up to sort of make that experience either more robust, difficult, or probably joyful also all at once?
Well, my husband and I are both practicing lawyers, and we married late in the game by most standards. My husband was 40 when we married, and I'm a little younger than that. So I think we had already gotten through the rough part of feeling like you have to prove yourself. Nice. I was up for partner of the year. I was pregnant with my first child.
Wow.
And I remember Kim Wardlaw, who was a partner at O'Melveny and then was appointed to the bench. And I ran into her while I was pregnant somewhere in Pasadena. And she knew I was with Foley by then, and we talked. We had worked on a big project together at O'Melveny, and she was asking how I was doing, and I was telling I'm up for partner this year, but as you can see, I don't know. And she looked at me and she said, girlfriend, that's actually going to give you a leg up, right? Because, that was a time when you were starting to feel wait a minute, we can't discriminate on against
yeah.
women based on the fact that they're having children.
Right.
My sister, who's 11 years older than I am, she interviewed with a major law firm in town when she graduated from law school. And the third question from this very prominent law firm was, well, do you plan to have a family?
Wow.
Right? So things have changed.
Yes.
And sometimes we forget that.
No, and it's really important to remember because I think you can lose sight of that.
Yeah.
And I think, even looking at what's changed in the last 5 years, but definitely at that time, like it looked like such a struggle from the outside. But I do think, I remember your kids on Sundays, being in the office for a period when we were all, the rest of us didn't have families and we're still trying to catch up. But like to be there and trying to navigate that space.
Yeah.
But one of the traits, and I did have a chance to like circle with others that get to work with you, and your positive presence, even in that. Even I remember that. Is that something that you've been able to carry through? And like, what allows you to do that? Because I feel like there's some secret in there.
Wow. I don't know if it's a positive outlook or just really like resign to there are things you can't change and things you can change.
Yeah.
So every day you get up and you make choices. What's the priority today? And how am I going to make it work?
Yeah.
And, you can either do that being grumpy or you can do that. Look, we all get grumpy.
Yes.
I get grumpy. My team knows when I'm in a mood.
Yeah.
But even when you're grumpy, trying to have fun with it.
Yeah.
And acknowledge it.
Right.
Today
That
I'm in a
does
mood,
help.
folks. So
Yeah.
watch out if I say something that offends you.
But I think that going back to the transparency aspect of your personality, I think is really served because it does create connection to allow people to not be positive all the time. Another phrase that was used to describe you is your endless enthusiasm. Like, I want to know where that comes from, especially being a lawyer and a mom. Like, is that something that's present on both sides of your life? Or is it something that's, predominantly your passion for healthcare? I know your level of commitment to healthcare is what I'm more familiar with. But how is that translated with your balancing of motherhood and that enthusiasm towards that?
I think it's coming from, a lower middle class family that didn't think I was smart enough to go to law school, gave me no financial support, not that they had any to give. I love my family and they have a lot of good qualities, but they just plain and simple, didn't get it.
Yeah.
And so part of it is just me being stubborn and wanting to prove them wrong, being positive about the fact that I can do it even when it may seem unrealistic.
I love that stubbornness serves us. Okay, because I think
it does.
That is one, I think, common characteristics of a lot of the women that I've had the pleasure of speaking with as part of this project. And that underlying quality, drives a lot of our success. Yeah. I think it really does. When you look back at that period of time when you were first a mom and like sort of speaking to listeners that are sort of in that space of, you had kids relatively close together and it's a lot, especially when you were a partner.
Yeah.
Early in your partner years with young kids, like what were the ways that, I know you said establish the priority of the day and pursue that, but there seems like there's so many different priorities. Like, how did you get through those days?
It's tough because I think one of the things that I dealt with a lot was just insecurity. Am I a good mother? Am I paying enough attention to my marriage? My clothes don't fit anymore, right? So, looking back, some of that I handled, some of it I didn't handle so well. But I wish I hadn't spent so much time worrying about stuff like that. Okay, my clothes didn't fit and I didn't look polished all the time, but no one really cared except me and maybe one of the catty secretaries who wanted to gossip about, Cammarano's looking kind of sloppy. But no one really cares, and nobody would judge guys on that. Yeah. Right? Nobody judges men who come into the office after, being up all night with a sick child and looking a little verklempt. Yeah. Nobody judges them. So, I needed to get over that, and I wish I had gotten over that sooner.
Yeah. It's a hard mental trick, though, because it does feel like the standards are different and, like, what weighs on is different. And I think it's really interesting that, you're in a relationship, a marriage with another lawyer. So I didn't go that route. I married a teacher. And that every once in a while, I think, God, would it have been easier if both of us were in the same kind of awareness? Like, has that been an advantage, like, to your marriage, to how you're raising your kids, to have another lawyer kind of with those same skills, like the logistical and the, managing details and all those things?
I mean, I think the critical thinking helps. We don't have very many big passionate fights.
Yeah.
Instead, we kind of cross-examine each other, and like that's not healthy. So
it's worked. It's worked. I think one of my favorite things you ever said to me. I have a lot of good Terri comments, but when we were both, I think you had just finished a house project, and I was at the beginning of ours, and you said, "Well, we got through without counseling," and I thought that is a great standard.
And we did.
Yeah,
we did. I insisted that we put a bucket of money aside for marriage counseling because I was
So
really
smart.
concerned about that.
Yeah.
But, I think I just had a really good partner.
Yeah.
And, he, just like I understand when he says, I've got a trial coming up, I'm not available.
Yes.
He would understand when I would say, I've got a closing
Yes.
coming up and I'm not going to be available, or a regulatory hearing or something. So that part of it helps a lot.
Yeah.
And I think just, being able to share part of our work life with each other. So I'm not a litigator, but once in a while, and he's a maritime lawyer, so deep into, international law and insurance. So once in a while I'll call him and I'm like, I was on the phone with our coverage counsel and they said this and I don't know what the hell they were talking about. Can you walk me through it? So, he's
nice.
like, we'll have a glass of wine and he'll call me and say, they're telling me they can't give me this because of HIPAA. Can you walk me through that?
That's so great.
So, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But he's definitely been, involved with the kids. I've never felt like I carried the burden with the kids.
Amazing.
And, I think, so I remember having dinner with one of my former Foley partners at his house with his wife, and they were both working. And at one point she pulled me aside and said, how do you guys do it? Like, how do you make sure everything is 50-50?
Oh, wow.
And, so we talked for a little bit and, driving home, I said to my husband, I'm like, that marriage is doomed. And sure enough, 6 months later, they filed for divorce. But, it doesn't work that way. It's not transactional, right? You just kind of both go all in and do what needs to be done. And you're vocal and communicative about what you can't do.
It's amazing because I do think like that hope or desire. There's actually a book that was written called Fair Play, and it's kind of attempts to approach where there's this like division of labor that it does, especially if you have working individuals, because as you mentioned, like someone has this, someone has that. There's just times when you're probably doing 100%, but there's also times when you can only do 30. Right. But I do think like what I've noticed, and in some of it, I feel like certain couples do it better than others, but like how to have the conversations and at what time do you have them? Because I think I had them way too late. Because the kids started coming and they didn't stop coming, and then it was just, I don't even know where the last 15 years really honestly went.
Right.
But I think like if I was starting out fresh, just I think acknowledging that it's not 50-50,
right,
but acknowledging how you can show up for each other in a way that works for both of you, would have been a helpful tactic.
Yeah.
What are your kids now? They are grown and so successful. I mean, the pride that flows from all they've accomplished. I mean, honestly, I think witnessing your work ethic had to be a critical component of what's enabled them to be successful. But what was your experience, raising them through even like the teenage years with a lawyer mom? Was there an advantage? Was it difficult? Like, what was your experience like in that space?
Our kids are pretty independent because they had to be.
Yeah.
Right. We had to teach them early on that, sometimes we're just not going to be available and you have to use good judgment.
Yeah.
And you asked about being lawyers. So I had a client when my kids were probably in elementary school that had big national operation acquired their first site in Hawaii. And we were at an event, and all their outside counsel were there, and everybody was saying, "Oh, we'll do your work in Hawaii." Well, the salty old general counsel said, "Not a damn one of you is licensed there." So stupid me says, "I'll get licensed there." I came home. I told my husband, I said, "We ought to get licensed in Hawaii." And he's like, "I'm already licensed in New York and California. I'm not taking another bar exam." And I said, we have kids, and someday, if we had a place in Hawaii, when they're married and have families, they're not going to their in-laws' house. They're coming to our house.
Yes.
So the next day, he's like, "Okay, I'll do it." So that's what we did for our 15th wedding anniversary.
Oh, my goodness.
And
So romantic.
How did we study for it? I mean, we were both way out. And he knows evidence. I don't know evidence. He forgot everything he ever learned about the UCC. So we got the Barbary tapes back in those days. They still made. You remember tapes?
I do. Yeah.
We got them and we played them in the car everywhere we went. And the kids heard them all. So my kids know their Miranda rights. They know the basic elements of a contract. I mean, they can still recite stuff. It's hilarious because they just listen to this with us. So my apologies to them for that. But they read, like my daughter, read her lease thoroughly and came to us and said, I don't like this provision. Is this something I should push back on?
There are advantages to having lawyer moms like that.
But, another thing I remember when, we always had help.
Yeah.
And our help always had to drive, and we always paid for driving lessons to make sure they were safe, put them in our car on our insurance. But, there was a time when we were in transition and there was no driver and our kids were active in sports. So we, back in those days, there was no Uber or Lyft. So we took them down. We live in Palos Verdes. We took them down to Torrance to a shopping center. And we said, "Here's the number of a cab company." And we had prepped them and told them how to do it. And we're like, "Call a cab and get home."
Yeah.
And we drove off.
Amazing.
And they each had to take a separate cab.
Oh, that's so great. Okay.
And they did. And so, we knew then that if we were ever without a driver, they could find their way home.
Yes.
I could probably get reported to child
I think
services if I did that today. But they were preteens, so they were old enough.
But I walked to kindergarten. Could you imagine seeing a 5-year-old walking a mile and a half with no parent? I would get there late every day because I would talk to all the neighbors, and my mom would get called, and "Your daughter's not here." She's like, "Oh, she'll be there." I go, that's just what we were. But I think it instilled a certain level of independence that they, no matter where they go in life, they can find a way home.
Right.
Cab, and now that's so much easier. But I think instilling those experiences. I laugh because we're live by the water, and my son the other day said, "Do you want to know what happened today?" And I leave, I work, so he's 12, and man, I'm sure Child Protective Services might call me next, but he's on his own. He knows how to cook himself and a lunch or breakfast, and he's like, "Well, we were on a motorboat with his friends, and the engine died, and I'm like, "Oh my God, okay, but you're home safe." And I think the experience of that flexes their muscles a little bit more. Which I think is becoming less and less common in an Uber world where you can just have a nap and call. So I love those life lessons. What are their memories of growing up, I think, with parents both that had big jobs, and especially a mom that was working so hard? Did they ever share about what that was like for them?
I think they, they definitely said, we noticed there were times you guys weren't around, right?
Yeah.
And it was the nanny or the au pair. And they've been honest about that. And, I think part of that I could have mitigated by not having a long commute. So as I had well over an hour commute each way, and that was without traffic.
Yeah.
And I look back and I regret not doing something. I'm not sure what we would have done because where my husband works and where I work, but I think
water.
and we wanted to stay in Palos Verdes, but I think looking back, we might have looked at that differently because I think that ate up time that I could have had with them. But they both got to college and said, these people don't know how to do their laundry.
Right.
These people don't know how to. There was stuff out in the real world that a lot of write a check, and they were kind of surprised by that because they had to do all that stuff, right? And then once in a while, I get when they're struggling as young professionals do, I get you guys set kind of a high bar for us, and it's like, oh no,
Oh,
you
my
don't go
goodness.
there. That's not fair.
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh.
This is not about
Yeah,
us.
this
This is
is
about
your
you
path.
and what
Yeah.
you're comfortable with. So, I do think that now we have more conversations about setting boundaries, right? Because that was something that I think my generation of women was not good at, setting boundaries. And so we have, and I'm better at it now, but that's only because I'm older and I don't have imposter syndrome like I did as a young lawyer.
I think that's hard. And that's like one of the pieces of that puzzle that's triggering from what you just shared was like, you know, women, we want to do it all, right? And as moms, you want to say yes and, you know, take on more and do the things. But one of the things that I think, and I don't know if it's because you've gone through it more, but your advice and wisdom around managing what's a reasonable expectation, given all the other things that parents need to do to care for their kids, and that honoring that season. I mean, I know, you know, even looking back with your commute, for example, because like those kind of things, I have those things. Every mom has those things. When I'm like, ooh, I could have done that differently,
Right.
and been more present. But then I also think for you, as you said that, like you wouldn't have had that downtime to transition.
Yeah.
You know, which is there's value in all of it. But I think when you look back and, you know, how you support other women that are in that season, like what do you think they can do differently to set it up with their supervisor, or how to, because not everyone is like you, quite honestly, and have that awareness, I guess, or reality. You know, oh, you think you're going to do this? Well, actually, let's set it up this way because that's more reasonable given that you have 5 children or whatever. Yeah. What leads you into navigating those conversations, and how would you advise young lawyer moms to like come to their supervisor and just say, this might not be working out?
Yeah. That's a good question because I didn't do a good job at that. After my second was born, you know, between the commute, having 2 children at home, my husband was very busy with his practice, you know, and I was struggling to make my hours requirement. And thankfully, the managing partner walked into my office one day and said, have you ever thought about reducing your hours? And it hadn't even occurred to me to ask because I thought asking would be admitting defeat or failure. And I am so grateful that he did that because it was easy. We cut a deal.
Yeah.
And it just took some of the pressure off. So I think, you know, learning to ask and not being afraid of no. Because if they say no, they're not going to fire you.
Right. I think there's sometimes that fear.
Right.
But I also love for all those people out there that are watching and witnessing a parent trying to manage this to step in.
Yeah.
Like what a gift that was. Because I feel the same way. Like I that same thing sort of happened to me when I was struggling to get pregnant. And my boss came in and said, you know what? Maybe this 3-hour commute's not helping you get pregnant. I'm like, it might not be, but can we work it out? And we worked something out. Yeah. But I do think I would never have asked. Yeah. And as much as I encourage everyone to ask, because you're right, what's the worst thing? They say no, but it's even like another side of that is to offer. Like, you know, and I think the fact that you have your eyes on people, you know, in seeing them is like a gift for the people that work with you.
Well, know? I hope so. Because I look, the whole, you got to be in the office 50 hours a week. I don't buy it. Yeah. I just don't buy it. COVID proved that you don't need it. Right. And there are some people, I have attorneys on my team who don't want to be at home working. They're like, I want to be away from my kids. I want to be in the office. I like the routine. And that's fine. Yeah. But there are other people who are more productive at home because they're not getting interrupted. Right. Obviously, FaceTime is important, and we have to make commitments around that. But I think, you know, young parents today are in a great place to ask. Yeah. Because we've learned through COVID that there are options. Yeah, we have proof of it. Because, I mean, it's that, and like kind of going back to your comments about the changes that have happened. Like, because even before COVID, you know, when I was trying to navigate after having my first to avoid the 3-hour commute to Pasadena from Orange County and offered, can I work from home just 2 days a week? And it was a no, because that was not the norm. Right. And so it's kind of opened up a lot of opportunity. I think it's also created some additional chaos for parents when they're trying to be at home and you're there, but you're not there. Like
that's hard to manage as well.
Right.
So I think like to going back to the boundary conversation and figuring out that for people really it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So one of the other pieces of your leadership that, again, I think you're such an example of how to do it right in many, many ways. The one other thing, like how you bring people up and have definitely supported even mothers, women to come into the room when you're having important conversations. Like that is really something that was highlighted to me as like something that even people that have worked for you for a long time, it still surprises them and it fills them when you bring them in and say we.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really impressed me, like the way that was so authentically shared as it's significant to people. But why do you do that? Like what kind of, because it's very unique. And I think some people, men, women, I don't think maybe it's a bit of a gender thing. I think you're so confident. This is my assessment of why Terri might do that. But I'd love to hear from you. Like what started you, or did someone else do that for you? Because it has a huge impact on the people that work with you.
You know, I really like the people I work with. I always have. You know, you always have one or two that you don't love, but I also, you know, I want to leave every place I've been better than it was when I got there. And I don't want people to be dependent on me. If I win the lottery and decide to move to Bermuda tomorrow,
Yes.
I want things to go on, and I want my clients to look at my team and say any one of them could do her job, right? I don't want to be that indispensable.
Yeah.
It puts too much pressure on me, and it doesn't give people the opportunity. And especially in a general counsel role, not a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
So
true.
when I hear of a great opportunity where someone just, you know, oh yeah, friend of a friend, that's how you get these jobs. And a lot of people told me that when I was ready to go in-house. That's not right. I mean, these are people who walked away from law firms.
Yes.
They gave up the potential upside income, which becomes significant over the years.
Yeah.
And especially in healthcare, they're still working 24/7 because we operate 24/7. And so we need to give them pathways forward and pathways up and opportunities within the organization so that they feel like they still have a good opportunity to progress.
Yeah.
An upward ladder somewhere in the organization. And it doesn't even have to be my job, but I want them to have the exposure to the management team. So often the general counsel is the only one that goes to board meetings, is the only one that, you know, no, you don't need me for everything.
It's amazing. But it is a differentiator of you. Because and I think that, you know, especially as, you know, a woman, but even just as a badass attorney, like that's a great path. That's a great thing we can all do for each other.
Yeah.
And I think it does, though, imbue from like your confidence and willingness to bring others in the fold. Like there's a security that comes with bringing other people in.
Well, I mean, that is nice to hear you say. But again, part of it is just I don't want to be the only person people go to, especially because I don't know everything. Yeah. So it's a waste of my time to just translate from the strategy officer to the subject matter expert. And I don't have time for that.
Efficiencies. I feel like that is that's another awesome aspect of why that works. But I do think it's seen as such a big deal for succession planning or however else it's being interpreted, but just to be part of that at any age in your career. The other thing I love about your career is you have been at these big firms, gone in-house, and really have the gamut of different environments at different levels of like, and what, when you look back, is the most family friendly, would you say?
Wow. That's a really good question. I think, you know, I've even been with a small firm, and my husband's firm is a boutique firm.
Okay.
I think small firms can be really hard because you're it, right? You don't have people to hand stuff off to.
That is true, yeah.
So unless you're really good at setting boundaries and being able to say, I'm not going to take on that new matter, or I'm going to increase my rates a little bit and get less work, but paid. I mean, you have to be strategic.
A lot of that, yes.
Because there's not a team, a big team behind you that can step in. Yeah. And, you know, my husband has always had just himself and a few attorneys.
Wow. Okay.
And so when something big is going on and we're traveling, he's got to stay connected to the office, or get someone to backfill. And so I think small firms have their challenges if you don't have a personality that can say no.
Yeah.
And that can be comfortable with, this year I'm going to take on less work.
Yeah.
And try to deal with it through increasing my
Like
rates
your
or hiring more
self-discipline
people.
too. Yeah.
Big firms, I think, are better than they used to be when you and
Okay.
I were young lawyers, because you do have a team and you can hand off. I think it gets harder when you're a partner, because if you've got an eat what you kill firm, right, then your partners may not want to take it unless you're going to hand over billing credits.
Okay.
So I think it depends on the firm, and
Okay.
I think there are some firms.
How
that
do you
are
find
very-
out if the firm's an eat what you kill? Like from a just word of mouth perspective? I mean, that's a really important question for people choosing.
Yeah. Well,
Is there a way?
maybe that's the right interview question.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
happens when
Yeah.
my family has this really important
Right.
scheduled vacation and I need to be completely out?
Yeah. I mean, but that, I think as a woman, I would never ask. It's still to this day.
Yeah.
I would struggle to ask that question, even at this level, even
Yeah.
25 years in. I think I would pause because it might suggest I'm not committed enough.
Yeah.
But I also would love them to have an answer that values that everyone needs to take time away and it's good for your brain and strategic processing and you come back better. All the reasons we know why, but I don't know if someone would feel comfortable
Asking that. I know.
But I love
know.
that idea.
But I think just asking around to
Yeah.
people who you know have been at a couple firms, or people like me who has relationships with
you would
most
know.
of the major health
I
law
know,
firms.
I know.
Right,
You're a
because
good
some do it
resource.
better than others,
Okay.
and some have compensation models that reward sharing clients, and I think those are going to make it easier.
It's a great point.
I think in-house, it depends on the industry. Healthcare, retail, hospitality all operate 24/7. Transportation 24/7. But I don't think it's ever been in recent years like it used to be, where going in-house you just manage outside counsel, because
so
there's
much more
budget
doing.
constraints, right? So I think with in-house, I think it can be workable, again, if you're just kind of doing a good job of delegating. If you're someone who can delegate and you're someone who can share. And the beauty of being in-house is that you can share without any of that concern over, well, can I bill for this?
Right.
Is this part of my
I know.
finding
It
fee?
relieves that stress.
So I think that helps, but you pay a price for it,
Yeah.
right? I'm watching some of my friends now who are retiring from the big
Right.
national law firms,
Yes.
and they were in my class, and it's, how come you get to retire? Oh yeah, that's right.
Right.
You've been paid the big bucks,
right. For quite a long time.
And I can't complain about my compensation, but relative to theirs,
right. It's different.
I'm
and it's
not-
a different path.
Yeah.
Like it is a different path. And that's where, people come to me and ask me, like, what kind of job should I get, from the big firm? And I'm always like, part of me recognizes the financial benefits of staying. I always say, okay, if you can go find some equity somewhere in an in-house job, that's another avenue that might support an earlier retirement, but it might not, right? That's still a risk. And then, of course, I think it's more of a mission-centric question for people that go in-house, though. I think there's something different that's fulfilling us that maybe is not monetarily based all the time to connect to what's happening and the why of it, So it's there's so many aspects of it. But as a parent, I think it's a really great thought process to evaluate, the big firm, small firm, in-house, to kind of discern those questions. Because I do think you're right. Every place can be so different. I mean, you could be in an awesome in-house position or an awesome law firm position that's figured it out, that's really figured it out.
Yeah.
What would you say, like looking back, was the hardest part of being a parent and being in the legal field? Like, I know we talked about perfectionism. Did that ever put a struggle on the way you approached motherhood? Or
I think, it did. And you and I have talked about this offline, but, I think we are fortunate and blessed. We live in upper middle class communities, and there are a lot of mothers who don't have the kind of jobs we have, and there can be judgment with that. And I really value a couple of women that I grew up with who were in my neighborhood and didn't work and didn't treat me like that. In fact, they offered to help.
Yeah.
One mother said, look, I know you work. Your daughter lives down the street from me. I'll take her to Girl Scouts, so you don't have to
Amazing.
worry about it. And, you know,
Those are the people.
like I would
Yeah.
do anything for that woman
Right.
today if she called me.
100%. Yes.
But there was also one woman who told me, maybe you shouldn't join our Girl Scout troop because you work and most of us don't. So I think that
those
kind of
sting. I mean, those moments you carry. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely, like, I remember a woman was working at a professional in like real estate and she quit. And she said, I said, how's it going? In a very, like, not that I was considering it for myself. She's like, I just didn't realize how much I was ignoring my child by being a working parent. And it was said in a way that it made me feel like she was suggesting that I'm ignoring my children because I work.
Yeah.
And it took me a few days to get over that comment. But I still remember it. It was probably 10 years ago. But, you know, I think for, like, the non-working moms out there, like, being helpers, like, you will never find a more grateful person to pay it forward however than a working parent.
That's
'Cause
right.
It's amazing. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I will bake pies until I can't bake pies for people that will take my children places. Like, it's hard to do it all.
Right.
You know, we appreciate that. So, like, I just hope that anyone listening that is asking people for rides or driving kids around, like, we appreciate it.
Yes.
And the ones that struggle, I mean, I think working moms, everyone has some grief, right, of their choices.
Yeah.
You know, we all do. And we can share it instead of judge each other for it, you know. And I think that's also a tricky aspect. With those experiences, I think, because they do sting, are there any where your kids shared a concern about, you know, that you weren't there, or like a moment that was a struggle for them that you were able to help them understand, like, what you're doing in the world? Because I mean, I look at your career, like, if they knew, and maybe they're like, my kids are a little young to have any sense of, like, all they know is I'm not there, right?
Yeah.
They don't always know what I'm doing.
You know, when they're young, it's kind of hard to explain what a lawyer does.
Yeah,
right.
Fair.
A friend of mine asked me to talk to her niece's Girl Scout group.
Wow. Okay.
It was around the time of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing.
Okay.
And they were going to do something about lawyers.
Okay.
And, you know, explaining to a group of elementary school kids, it took me a while to think about how to explain what we do.
Yeah.
So I don't think my kids really understood it until about high school. And then they didn't really care because they were off doing their own thing, as high schoolers do. But they get it now. They understand it now that, you know, I think in the college years when they start, you know, colleges are big on networking now and a lot more focused on career planning. And that's when, like, they started to recognize the names of my husband's clients, and they started to recognize the name of my law firm and the consulting firms that I had worked with over the years, and like, oh wow, that's a player.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah. That's good.
And so I think, you know, they appreciate it now. I don't think in the moment they care whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, or you know, a biology teacher or what you do. They just know you're not there. Right. And so, you know, part of it I think is just making the time good when you have it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean not doing the normal parenting and being a disciplinarian when you need to, but just making sure that you're 100% there.
Yeah.
You know, learning not to pick up the phone. I mean, I had to discipline myself back in the days of the blackberries that we used to call crackberries.
Yes.
You know, just like I'm putting it down. It's Saturday morning. I'm putting there's nothing more important right now, and putting it someplace else. So that I could just be 100% there with my family, my husband and my kids. And same when we travel. I mean, we really try to disconnect. And, you know, it's funny. I see it with both my kids. They're on their phones a lot, even as young adults. And it's like, we paid for this trip. Put it down.
And you're not working right now.
Put it down. I didn't come here to see your phone.
Right.
But
that's good discipline, though. And I think that level of presence is because we're giving them all of it. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the differentiators I've noticed is that, you know, a lot of times when you're with them 24/7, and that is your job, that your primary role, there's less connectivity sometimes.
Yeah.
That I do feel like, you know, one of our nanny a long time ago said, I've never seen a mom spend more time with their kids that also works. And I'm like, well, it's not that I'm spending a lot of time. It's just when I'm with them, I was like zoned in, you know, 100%. And but there is a discipline with these phones that I also think when you have younger kids today, I mean, you know, I bring a deck of cards to restaurants.
Oh, I love that.
Because I do not want, because my 14-year-old has a phone. I'm like, I'm not doing this. I don't. And it is fun and engaged. It does help. But thinking of other things to do with our hands, like, honestly, because it's a distraction.
Yeah.
And then, but it also disconnects us. So I think those are the things that probably make it harder to raise kids right now. Yeah. You know, at least your, 20-plus-year-old kids will listen to you still, which is also pretty awesome.
You know, another thing we did is when our kids were in junior high and high school and they'd get the reading assignments, we'd get the books on tape. Because my kids were playing sports, travel sports. Yeah. We were driving a lot.
Oh, my gosh.
So we would listen to the book in the car so we could talk about it.
Oh, I love that.
Right? And my daughter's an avid reader. My son doesn't love reading, but he really liked the books on tape because auditory is better for him than visual learning. And that turned out to be fun because, we ended up reading every book they read.
That's great. And that's a connection point. And that's something they probably remember, as you go back and where you were when you were listening to those, stories. That's a great idea. What do you think has given you the most fulfillment when you look back at your journey, kind of being a mom and being an attorney?
Oh, gosh. My kids are my joy, my partner, my husband. That has definitely given me the most. They've been so supportive. Yeah. And, I remember coming home and saying, I'm going to leave Foley and Lardner, a big national law firm with a really nice income, and take a huge pay cut to go in-house at my first general counsel job. And my husband didn't bat an eye. He's like, we'll figure it out. If that's really what you want, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And that turned out to be a good move family-wise because the commute was not a lot less, but different and more flexible. So, it really, I've heard, and I can't remember who said it, one of the most important decisions you make about your career is picking a good partner.
Yeah.
And
it's a very good point.
And it's so true. And, along the way, not forgetting to nurture that relationship as much as you nurture
that. And that
kids.
is a trick too. I mean, do you have any, I feel like I love when you share about that, but like any tricks about that? Because I feel like it can be a hard place to put attention and energy.
Yeah.
How did you structure that? Is there like, people talk about date nights, we suck at those, but like, what are things that have worked to help connect?
I think that I look back and think I'm not great at this. I mean, we've had our struggles like every marriage does, but I think one of the mistakes I made was getting so wrapped up in trying to do it all and then wanting my husband to say, oh my gosh, you're amazing, you do it all. It's like he was doing it all too. And like, kind of being so wrapped up in your, woe is me, this is hard shit.
Yeah.
Pardon my French.
Okay.
But like, we're both doing hard stuff. And I wish we had had more dialogue about we're both doing hard things.
Yeah.
And this is really hard. And we don't have to say it out loud how much we appreciate that but we do appreciate that each other is doing hard stuff and trying to balance a lot of responsibilities.
I love that. I mean, I think that's very powerful because I definitely admit to that exact same feeling and thought. And, I think you're right. Everyone's doing what they can.
Yeah.
Because it is a lot. I mean, I think some quote I heard once was like 97% of marriages experience like a downfall because of this, and it's child raising. Like, right? It's very hard. And especially if you are, like, I feel like with type A personalities, people that are all in and trying to, set it up so that it's like seamless, but it's imperfect. And it's wonderfully imperfect. I mean, I think the places where I've failed have borne opportunities for independence for my kids.
Right.
And that's, in the end, great. From everyone else looking in, I might be perceived as irresponsible.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, me too.
It's okay. But I accept that now
Yeah.
because I do see there's positive coming. I mean, you have a son living abroad, like a very amazing career that if he was less independent may never have come to fruition. I mean, that's a bold move, you know? So I feel like there's pride in that, in the way you did it.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you my favorite question about the relationship you have with your mother-in-law and how, if you have any tips or tricks for us out there who find ourselves, you know, two women loving the same man, it's not always easy.
Yes.
And if you can share anything that's worked well to have a successful relationship with your mother-in-law.
I adore my mother-in-law.
That's
She
awesome.
just turned 92.
Oh, my goodness.
She's living independently. She is gorgeous inside and out. And, you know, we've always had a good relationship. And I think one reason is because she has 3 daughters. And I saw that she didn't have a lot, just kind of the girly stuff in common with them.
Okay.
But she and I we both love antiques.
Oh, fun. Okay.
We both love like fabric and sewing and things like that. So, you know, like I wanted to be her daughter for that purpose.
Okay.
And, you know, I think with the dynamic of both of you loving the same man, it took me a while to figure this out, but I realized if I'm going to have a relationship with her, I can't end run my husband. He needs to be aware. So if I'm going to make plans with her, I want my husband to know. Or if she contacts me about, you know, is your husband, you know, is my son okay? Because he said this, and they're having a little, you know, little usual mother-son situation. I need to let him know that I'm on his side first.
Oh, that's smart.
And not just respond without checking in with him about what's going on before I get sucked into the drama.
That is
because it's his drama, not mine.
No, of course, but that's smart.
And yeah, I mean, I just love her.
That's
and
awesome.
my mother has been gone for over 25 years, and so it's been fun to have
that
you know,
figure in your
someone
life.
that can be that figure for me.
I love that. That's a
Yeah.
great answer. Thank you for sharing. And I just, you know, any last words of wisdom that you might convey to a young lawyer mom, just because you've had such a wealth of experience and knowledge?
You know, I think, again, just learning to say no. It's okay to say no. You don't have to sit on a board or do volunteer work. What's going to happen if you do that because today and this week you can't handle it?
Yeah.
Nothing. No one's going to remember after next week. And then I think the other thing is, you know, we are all blessed with a profession that pays us well. May not always pay us what we want it to pay. I mean, I guess we could have been investment bankers. But we make a choice every day to work. And so resenting the work because it's interfering with your personal life isn't really fair when you make that choice every day. But you also get to make the choice of, you know, we may not be able to buy a house in the next few years, but I'm going to get the help I need. I'm going to have the help I need. If I don't want to shop for groceries and have them delivered because that's 20 more minutes that I get to spend with my kids without being distracted by whether or not we need, you know, flour or salt, I'm going to pay for that. And in the big scheme of things, buying your time back by being willing to engage the help you need, and not feeling guilty about, you know, well, if I do this, we may not get to go to Hawaii or Europe next year. So what?
Yeah.
You'll get there.
I totally agree with that. And it's a hard choice to make, but I think knowing others have made that and don't regret it.
Yeah.
You know, because that time, especially because it's such a short season.
Yeah.
When these kids are here and present and in your house, like I feel like savoring the time makes so much sense. That's great advice. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for being on the show. I mean, you are one of my favorite humans and definitely have been an inspiration, not just to me, I know to a lot of the other people as well. And I really appreciate you making the effort to be part of this experience.
And my pleasure. I think this is a great thing that you're doing, and just really respect that you've been able to pull this concept into something that I think fills a void.
Thank you. I hope it's been a lot of fun chatting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've been listening to The Mothers-in-Law with Carrie Foliani. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you found the insights and stories shared helpful as you navigate your own journey. I also hope that you enjoyed listening to my mother, not that I always do. For more resources, to connect with the community, and to continue exploring how to align your personal and professional life, visit www.themothersinlaw.com. We appreciate you.